What is up, guys? I'm Rick Kakis, and today we have the ultimate Grandmaster farming guide, and that's because Grandmasters are finally selectable within Destiny 2 Season of the Chosen, and that means from now until the end of this season, you can actually select which Grandmaster you want to do. So, in this video, we're going to be going over the easiest Grandmaster to select, a bunch of tips to make it even easier, and the best loadouts to make it even easier. If you do all of these things, you're going to be completing a Grandmaster Nightfall in barely over 10 minutes, which is super efficient in getting those Nightfall exclusive weapons like the Palindrome, Shadow Price, and Swarm, depending on which week it is. And so, let's get started. But just before we do, it's Wednesday, and every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, myself, True Vanguard, and MTashed host the Real Gamer Hour podcast. It is a ton of fun where we talk about the craziest news stories in gaming to happen over the past week. Guys, definitely check it out. It's the first link in the description down below. Click it. Unless you're not a real gamer, then I don't know what you're doing. But moving on from there, let's get started here with the Grandmaster Guide. So, first off, as you've seen from the background gameplay, by far the easiest Grandmaster is the Arms Dealer Strike. And frankly, it's not even close. If you want to farm, you need to pick Arms Dealer. Now moving on from there, let's talk about my recommended loadouts. Firstly, for weapons. Now there's going to be two types of champions in there, Unstoppable and Barrier. And by far, the weapon you should absolutely be equipping is a sniper rifle. That's because you want to take advantage of the sniper rifle anti-barrier rounds. This is frankly one of the best PvE mods for this entire season, and it single-handedly has made Grandmasters significantly easier than they were in previous seasons, just because you get to use a powerful special weapon to deal with champions instead of having to rely on a primary weapon, and God forbid, double primary weapons. So, what kind of sniper rifles should you be looking for? Well, I think the best and what I am always going to be using is the Secession. Now, this comes from the Deepstone Crypt raid, and the role of Reconstruction plus Vorpal weapon is absolutely incredible. If you have one of these, this is what I would recommend. But that's not the only good option. Another great kinetic one is the Long Shadow. Pretty easy to get as well, as it's kind of a random world drop. You can get it from spamming your gunsmith materials at the gunsmith, and you can get one with rapid hit plus triple tap plus an extended mag. This thing can definitely do some work. Now another great option here is actually the brand new Frozen Orbit. This has a phenomenal PvE role of triple tap Vorpal. If you have one with Vorpal, seriously consider using it, and that's because it's void. Very importantly, and this will come up as we recommend more weapons, there are only going to be void shields for the entire strike until the very end. But what we're going to recommend at the very end is a boss melt, so you will never have to deal with any shields other than voids. The Frozen Orbit being void is very good here. Of course, if you have a different favorite sniper rifle, feel free to use it. Something even like the Izanagi's Burden would be a decent choice. Moving on from there, however, let's talk about your primary weapon. Now, you're going to choose between either hand cannons or pulse rifles for the unstoppable rounds. So, for hand cannons, you could go with something like the Palindrome. You're probably trying to get one, but if you already have one, it is void, which again is important. And on that same note, the bottom dollar is a solid choice as well, and again, mainly because it's void. But frankly, in Grandmasters, hand cannons and their limited ranges definitely suffer a bit. I prefer pulse rifles, and the rest of my team felt the same way. So something like the Last Perdition is a pretty easy to get your hands on. It's a great void pulse rifle. Another great void pulse is the Premonition. This is a little bit hard to get. It comes from the dungeon, the Pit of Heresy dungeon. So if you have one though, it's pretty darn good. And moving on from there, for our heavy weapon, all three of us are using the Anarchy. This is arguably the best PvE exotic in the entire game, and it is so good within specifically the arms dealer Nightfall, mainly because it can stick and deal with the Cabal ships, the Threshers, very, very easily. Like if all three of us stick a Thresher, it's going to die in no time, and you definitely want to kill those. They can be very problematic. It's also great against the big Cabal tanks because they're very easy to hit, and the DOT really affects them. And also just you have big Cabal targets, like Unstops are very easy to hit from across the map, so are the barriers. It's just a great weapon. If you don't have one and you're good enough to do a Grandmaster, you're good enough to go do some Deep Stone Crypts and get one. Like seriously, you should be trying to get the Anarchy more than pretty much anything else in this game. That's how good it is. But if you don't have one or you don't want to use them, don't worry, I do have some alternatives. One good one is the Wither Horde. One, maybe two people using the Wither Horde can simulate an Anarchy in a lot of ways. It provides that great damage over time, and it's also quite effective against the Threshers. Now, you can't stack multiple Wither Hordes on the same target, so one person hitting a Thresher is going to do a pretty significant amount of damage. The tank as well, the Cabal tanks take a lot of damage from the Wither Horde, and just its use as an area of effect denial weapon and that DOT so you can be damaging an enemy while behind cover, very, very effective. But some other great options in the heavy slot, the Xenophage puts out a ton of damage, pretty good choice there, as well as other just legendary machine guns like the Swarm. If you have one with Vorpal weapon, that can do a ton of damage. The 7th Seraph Saw as well in that same vein, but even a powerful rocket launcher like the Sleepless here with Vorpal, or perhaps a auto-loading plus lasting impression rocket would be decent as well. Something that puts forth a lot of damage. But let's move on from there and talk about subclasses and armor. So, you can use the classic defensive PvE supers and armor combinations, such as the Phoenix Protocol with Well of Radiance, or, you know, if you're Titan, something like the Ursa Furiosa Gauntlets, or the Helm of Saint 14 and Bubble. Those are going to be great, and those are going to increase your chances of success. However, our best times when we were going for sheer speed and farmability came from going with offensive supers, actually. So, for our Warlocks, both of our Warlocks were actually using Geomags and Chaos Reach. Turns out that this works incredibly well at melting the Cabal tanks. As long as one person has the Sundering Glare mod and gets that debuff on a tank, one Geomag Chaos Reach can completely kill the tank and has a little bit extra to spare. So that was very, very good, and it also does wonders against the ads. We actually combined the two Geomags with our Titan using Thunder Crash and the Cuirass of the Falling Star. When all three of these things combined, as you can see, you can absolutely melt the boss in seconds before he's able to do anything within this final encounter. You can completely ignore this encounter, and it's a pretty hard one. You have Thresher ships coming in, you have a ton of ads. It's a really difficult one, so if you can just melt that boss immediately, it makes things unbelievably easy. But one other thing I'm going to recommend is if you are not using an Anarchy, if you're using something like the Xenophage, that can be pretty ammo hungry. So having one person using the Aeon Gauntlets and then specifically using the mod where you get heavy ammo when you finish a mini boss and champions count, especially if you have a hunter with invisibility with that setup, it's very, very powerful. They can just go invisible and finish pretty much every champion to get almost an infinite supply of heavy ammo. And lastly, in the armor section, if you want to put some resist mods on, definitely solar damage resist is fantastic, as well as arc damage resist, because the Cabal mainly deal solar or arc, and both are going to be fantastic, as well as like a sniper damage resist. There is a lot of Scions that can kill you in one shot without it, so definitely consider that. And if you have the Protective Light mod, use it. This thing is unbelievable in PvE and it will save your life so much. Simply combine that with just a Taking Charge mod and you're good to go. Now, moving on from there, lastly, let's talk about some strike specific tips. So, firstly, as I alluded to earlier, whenever you see a Thresher, take it down. If you can get double ticks of Anarchy on it, it's going to be dead very, very quickly. Now, in terms of ads, definitely use your sniper against the adds, especially if you have a high impact sniper. You can kill them in one single headshot, and it's just going to be way more efficient than poking away at them with your primary for a long time. Just save enough ammo to deal with the barrier champions. Now, as we continue forward, it should be mentioned, as you can see here, if you stun an unstoppable and apply Sundering Glare, one Thunder Crash can take out that unstoppable at pretty much full health. So yeah, that's something to know. Oh, and by the way, on this part, there is going to be a phalanx that randomly appears like mid-gunfight, so just be careful about that. Now, as you move forward, if you have invisibility, you can go past these guys. If you don't, you're just going to have to fight them. But once you can take out your Sparrow, definitely go the way you see me go in the background gameplay. You can skip all of these guys out here, make your way into the corner, and then you can go past these guys, and once you get to the top of the ramp, you can turn around and then deal with the one champion here, and then simply turn around and keep going on your way. It's going to be much easier than trying to deal with it head on. Now, again, once you get inside, you're going to have to deal with the tank, so one Sundering Glare plus a Chaos Reach completely kills that tank, so really keep that in mind. The two barrier champions in this part can definitely be challenging. Make sure they're not targeting you if you're trying to move. But remember, if you have a Thunder Crash and you stun both of them, you can take them out with one Thunder Crash. Pretty darn good there as well. Now, when the second tank comes down, you are going to have 3 unstoppable champions charging you, so simply retreat. Like, if you can stun these guys, deal some damage with some sniper rifles, some anarchy, some witherhorde, whatever, and then retreat back, stun them again, retreat back, you can kind of whittle them down pretty easily and pick them off one by one, no problem. Do not stand your ground. Like, don't put a well down and stay in the well as they're approaching you, because you'll just be overwhelmed. Keep moving backwards and stunning them. Now, a really interesting tip right here. When these doors open, you can actually see the boss and you can damage the boss. However, he's going to regain all of his health when he goes to the final top part where you have the proper boss fight. But if you have some excess ammo, like if you have a lot of anarchy and you stick him, you do some damage to this guy, if you do enough damage, he just goes away for the entire encounter. You don't have to deal with him. So that is definitely going to make things easier if you have excess ammo to do that. And moving on from there, we have the final boss fight and also the biggest tip. This is something you guys definitely want to do to get so much more damage on the boss. So before you pull the lever, you want to send someone up the chain, as you can see. As long as they get high enough, when you pull the lever, a bunch of adds will spawn, and as you're fighting those adds, you actually want the guy up the chain to come down. So the guy on the chain is down on the ground before you've killed the last add that spawns, and then when you kill the last add, as you can see, the boss appears right away. He usually does not appear on top this quickly, and he just stands there. Now, he will snipe at you, but if you have anarchy, you can stick him from all the way down here, so the entire elevator ride up, the boss is taking damage. Now, if you don't have anarchy, even just being able to snipe him as you're going up, you're going to get a ton of damage on him way earlier than you otherwise would. So try to time his shots. You can kind of easily hear them charging up and shooting, and once you hear that shot, come out of cover, do a bunch of damage. Once you see his kind of laser getting yellow, get back behind cover for sure. But once you get up top, then you unleash all of your damage dealing supers, so you should have double Chaos Reach as well as a Thunder Crash, and as you can see, if you unleash all of that combined with the damage you did when you're going up, you will absolutely melt this boss. Now, there is another safer approach, which is actually to not do the chain thing, to simply hide and be completely safe, and then you can take out all of the different flame turrets and damage the boss so he gets 1/2 of the first third of his health gone. You don't want to do any more than that. As long as you don't do more than that, he won't move. Then you unleash all of your damage dealing supers, you put Sundering Glare on him, you go for the melt. So definitely the approach by far that you need to take is to melt this guy before he jumps away, before any shenanigans happen. So building your classes around that, building your loads around that factor is going to be incredibly helpful in getting this done fast. And so guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.